So, you want to be a contractor. Ever wonder what it takes to become a contractor? The journey they go on to get where they are now, or the crazy things they see and hear on the job site? Well, you're in the right spot. Welcome to So You Want to Be a Contractor, the podcast. Join your host, Mike Fisher, as he talks to owners of construction companies from all over about how they got started, how they run their business, and some of the craziest stories they've experienced on their job sites. And now, your host, Mike Fisher.
Welcome to So You Want to Be a Contractor. This is episode number 7. My name is Mike. With me today, my guest, Bill Mann. How you doing, Bill?
Doing well, Mike. Thanks for having me.
No, thanks for taking the time. Appreciate it. Bill is the president of GB Group Inc. And why don't you give us your history? Let us know kind of how you got into this industry and all the fun things that brought you to where you are today.
Well, I kind of started in the construction industry back when I was in high school with my mother and her partner who built apartment buildings. And so used to do a lot of repairs and apartment flips before going to college. And then I went to college, and one of my degrees is in construction management. And the program at the time required that we actually worked in the industry as we went to school. So I went to work for a real estate developer that built homeowners associations. And worked in his warranty department. And so that was kind of my entry to the HOA world. And pretty much stayed in it the rest of my career. So I've done construction lending, I've done project management, and then also reconstruction work, which is basically what I've been doing for the last 20 years.
So when you say reconstruction work, you guys are actually going in and rehabbing apartments and
our work is primarily for occupied residential housing. So it's basically apartments, condominiums, townhouse developments. Majority of work is rehab work. We don't do much existing ground up type construction unless maybe it's a clubhouse or something for existing community, or fire jobs sometimes can get into almost ground up. But it's, basically siding, roof, decks, stairs, windows, upgrades, painting. And then the apartment world obviously has interior rehab projects as they go through their complexes. So.
Right. So what had your own company, and what was that process like of going from, and that decision-making process going from, employee, having all that background and working your way through all those different levels of the different companies to kind of making that decision to go out on your own?
Well, I'm actually I don't own GB Group. The GB Group, I'm actually working for the family that owns it. And the founders, the mother and father, Reagan and Greg Brown, are transitioning out into retirement. And we have two identical twin millennial sons taking over. So I'm kind of here helping them through that transition process. Of going from one generation to the next, which has been been a lot of fun. So
No. So that brings a whole another level of questions. That's for sure. So how long have you been associated with GB Group, and did you step in as president, or did you move up with them, or?
I've been here almost 4 years. I stepped in originally as vice president, and then I was promoted to president. Greg and Reagan, I've known Greg way before he even started GB Group. I've known them. They've been friendly competitors of mine for decades, and opportunity to kind of, as all of us baby boomers are kind of moving into the retirement world of like, how are we transitioning out of this?
Right.
I joined them, almost 4 years ago, and brought over a lot of my team and stuff at the time.
So obviously they were actively looking for somebody like you to kind of help that transition process between them and their sons that are taking over?
Yeah, I think that's always a tough situation with family, going from one group to the next. And then, there's the age thing too, or all us old people think we know better. So it's like, are they really ready to take over the reins or not take over the reins? So, sometimes it's nice, I think, for them to have kind of a third party to kind of look at stuff. And It's a process to go through. I mean, there's a lot of different things to consider. There's a lot of, different things, issues that come up, when you're transitioning existing companies, especially one of significant size. So,
Yeah. I've kind of seen that transition a few times, or at least spoke to people in that transition of going from, the one generation to the next. And it seems to go, a number of different ways. How has that process been, and where have you seen that you've kind of been helpful in that transition process, in some of the things that that you get there?
well, I think some of it just knowing different, watching different companies over the years, go from, one generation to the next. My dad worked at Bechtel and watched it go junior to the next generation. So he went through several generation transitions, and just kind of hearing, and then a lot of friends, parents, companies that companies took over, what was successful, what wasn't successful. You kind of have to look at some of that. Plus, you're also dealing with a situation where you have two brothers, that
Right.
business partners. And so that kind of adds a different, flavor to it. Is very
Yeah.
kind of adamant that they get some kind of a partnership agreement put together with exit strategies and stuff like that. Because right now, neither one are married, they don't have kids, things like that. And it's different things happen,
Yeah, it all seems real easy right now.
decade to decade relationship. So you never know what's going to transpire.
Yeah.
So, and we've all seen, existing companies have issues with things like divorce and other things, or partners break up. And so, the more pre-planning you can do to mitigate, potential things down the road. And then there's just issues of, you've got lines of credit and credit cards that, people have been personally guaranteeing for decades, and they have tremendous amount of net worth. And now you're dealing with younger people where their net worth isn't as big, and
Not quite there yet. Yeah. Yeah.
So it's all been a challenge, but just, the hiccups and all that, licensing, I got two people, who's going to be CEO, who's not going to be CEO, that kind of thing.
Right. Yeah, sounds like you've turned into almost a mediator too, right? In the process, and
they actually really do well going into things, and internally, there's no been huge battles or anything like that. I think they very reasonable group of people. They all sit down and work through all this. So
that's awesome.
And I think that helps a lot.
So obviously you're helping with that transition part. Are there other roles that you have on a day-to-day that you manage?
Oh, absolutely. So we do a lot of construction defect support to different law firms. So I'm involved in that. The new SB 326 deck inspection process and 721 for the apartments, and been involved in getting that set up and moving. And just, day-to-day operations, sales, keep moving the company forward from a technology standpoint. Construction is not exactly an industry that's embraced technology, but we're trying to keep
not leading the charge in that department. Too. Yeah. So maybe kind of speak to that a little bit. What are some things, and I would have to imagine that younger generation coming in is probably helping, push some of that stuff, because they probably grew up in it, right? What are some of the things you guys are doing?
Actually, to be honest with you, I didn't see much difference between the generations on that. I think everybody, sees a lot of benefit with technology. Getting, the field, being able to do a lot of electronic medium and stuff back and forth to the administrative staff. All the different things that go with file generation and file keeping and stuff like that. I think that's all gotten really tuned in. I think most people, the biggest challenge has always been the field, because most of our field personnel are, English isn't their first language. They have their own just challenges trying to do it. But I have to say, for the most part, there's certainly a group of them that seem to be able to embrace it and do it well. So
that's awesome. Very fun. So where do you, I guess, where do you see your role kind of developing as this transition takes place? So, I mean, are you there kind of the long haul as
Well,
your
my long
position?
haul is going to be over here pretty soon.
Trying to transition out as well, huh? Yeah.
I'll
Yep.
retire at some point. I wasn't sure COVID wasn't going to accelerate that process, but
Right.
luckily we, seem to have come out the other side on that. So no, I mean, I'm just, going to be here helping with the corporate stuff, and continue with sales. I mean, we have a very bifurcated client base, where, there's the new group of millennials and stuff coming up through the ranks, which, the boys certainly have a much better, stronger relationship with. And then there's still the old crew that, I'm attached to. So,
Right.
so I think from a marketing standpoint, we've done really well because we kind of appeal to both groups. And there's a need to have me around, I'll be here. So
Yeah. Yeah. What maybe kind of, I have to imagine kind of the space that you guys are in, it's um pretty tough to kind of break in, right? I would imagine, or maybe once you have a client, they kind of turn to you for a lot of things, right?
well, we, kind of a weird situation, with dealing with the existing multi-housing market, because the clients a lot of times are going through fee management companies. Certainly the HOAs are. So we
Right.
never really are, very rarely, sometimes we're not even in contact with what I consider the client, whether it's a board of directors or a property owner for, we're dealing with a property manager. So we kind of have a weird, gatekeeper that's kind of between
Yeah.
us and the owner. So a lot of our relationships are with the gatekeepers. We certainly do have relationships with boards of directors and building owners, but for the most part, the gatekeeper the relationship with, and that's been a revolving industry, in the last couple of years like I've never seen before.
So how does that, I guess, how do you focus your marketing then, right? If your end goal is, and the person you want to make happy is that property owner or the developer, right? But you have to really, your work is being driven by the property management. I mean, I feel like that's a pretty tough marketing task.
It is. I mean, a great deal of our marketing is focused towards the manager or property management companies, because they are the ones that are usually putting projects out the bid or adding us to bid lists or things like that. But they, for whatever reason, the managers it's been like a chess game of them moving from company to company. And just, the amount of database time we spend tracking projects has increased tremendously. I mean, the fact we're using a product like Salesforce to track a little construction company market is
So what are there some things that you guys do for marketing have been pretty successful for you?
well, I mean, certainly this last couple of years has been a challenge because, normally direct marketing. So
I was
us
going to
being
say a lot of
able
it's probably
to,
handshakes and networking.
yeah, I mean, not being able to lunch with people or whatever, or
Right.
see them face to face, been difficult. But we came up with a lot of different strategies. We went heavily on. We've always been heavily on the education side of the industry for managers. So we did a lot of speaking initially coming out of the gate with COVID, and then a year ago we started our podcast, HOA's Story, which is all HOA driven thing. So every week we release a new podcast. And that's helped with our marketing. And then we've done more virtual things with management companies and stuff where we'll like send out wine tasting kits to everybody and then do a virtual wine tasting with everybody at home on Zoom, as well as different kinds of games and different things. So it's definitely a little more out of the box. I mean, we're kind of coming out of where there's some in-person meetings, but still, for the most part, everything's still Zoom
Yeah.
related.
Well, it sounds like you guys have gotten pretty creative. Those are, I love, I mean, those are awesome ideas and ones that I haven't heard before and probably, pretty unique to this industry as a whole. Where were these things that like somebody in your office came up with, or did you have help coming up with some of this stuff, or?
I mean, some of it, Reagan Brown and I have always spoke a lot. So that was kind of the initial thing. And so we really got on it where with the different organizations, CACM and CAI, on Echo, of being participating in their presentations. And then certainly COVID had its issues with the construction industry, so we spoke a lot on the COVID restrictions. We spoke on material supply chain issues, all the different components kind of related this last year with last 2 years with the COVID crisis. And so that really kind of helped. And then kind of we got to the end, we were like Reagan came up with doing the podcast. And so I said, well, let's give it a try. And it's been very successful. So
That's funny. I kind of had the same thing. So my previous employer, they said, hey, you should probably do this. It's a great way to kind of network. And I kind of went, I don't know about that, but I'm actually having more fun doing it than I am reaping the benefits of the actual networking. But is it kind of the same thing for you guys? Is it turned into like a fun project for you that you've seen grow up, or and then on the flip side of that, are you actually seeing kind of business and those relationships being developed via that podcast?
It's been very interesting on the podcast side. So, we kind of, since ours is geared more towards HOA based off of the
Right.
name, with issues related to the HOA industry. So whether it's legislation, management issues, construction issues, and legal issues, we've kind of gone the soup to nuts type thing with the
Right.
topics. And so, it's always interesting trying to come up with new topics. I think we passed. So it's like,
Wow.
yeah, so it's kind of like one of those things where, where are you going to go with this, and what's the next thing? What's this thing we're going to talk about? But some of the things, like we did several on the SB 326 deck inspection, or elevated element inspection requirements. I mean, those have been useful not only for the property management companies, but for them to use as a tool to send their boards to educate them. So
Yeah.
and then one of the most listened to ones right out of the gate, we did one on sewer laterals, which I got eyebrows raised. We're doing a podcast on sewer laterals.
Yeah. Right.
But it's becoming a ever big thing, kind of out of the blue, with a lot of different counties up in Northern California. So it actually was well listened to, and the gentleman that did it was like book solid right after it happened. So
That's awesome. Good for him. I love those kind of outside the box ideas, right? Especially in this very kind of, we touched on it, antiquated and kind of old school industry, right? I mean, everybody thinks yellow legal pads and boots on the ground, and that's kind of how it works. But you call it, you saw it kind of shifting, a couple of years ago, or maybe 3 or 4 years ago, and moving, a little bit more digital in a lot of different aspects. And I think, and you'll probably agree, COVID probably just accelerated that for everybody, right? It forced everybody to either, for lack of a better term, shit or get off the pot, right? I mean, at that point, you either had to figure it out or you were done, because there was no other way.
I totally agree with you. I mean, that was, one of the things, and I think, things like the virtual meetings and stuff, just for us, because of the time saving of not having to travel and sit and wait for a meeting, and go to a 20 or 30 minute meeting and then drive an hour and a half back to where you need to go. I mean, it's just huge on our part, and being able to even do multiple meetings in one evening or one afternoon. So that's been been a great thing. I think the whole things, buying things on Amazon and stuff like that. I think the podcast stuff became much more popular because people were using their computers for more things than they probably ever have in the past. And so it's been a great tool and a great experience. So watching things kind of unravel here. So
no, that's awesome. And applaud you guys for kind of for being on the forefront of that and the precipice of that, because I think it's like I said, it's fun to watch and fun to see in the industry for sure. Flipping to the construction side, do you guys self-perform a lot of this work, or are you more on the management side when it comes to the actual construction work?
No, we're boots on the ground company. I mean, we have, almost 300 field employees. So
I was going to say that went pretty massive for you then.
Yeah, we self-perform pretty much most, I would say, 80 to 90, probably more like 90%, 95% of our contracts. I mean, every once in a while, we'll have a specialty trade or something where we need to bring in a subcontractor, but it doesn't usually happen too often. Things like pools and stuff, we'll have a
Right.
pool
Right.
contractor come in.
So there's, I mean, obviously I've talked to hundreds of contractors and plenty of them are clients and all, and this, that, and the other, but there are definitely two trains of thought there, right? One of them is, I don't want to deal with the employee management. I'd rather deal with subcontractors and let them deal with everything. And I'd rather just manage projects. Then the other people, the other flip side of that is, no, I want to control the labor. I want to control the quality and I want to have more control. Not that you can't do, both either way. But and obviously you weren't around when that decision was made, but have there been discussions about, using more subcontractors? What is your guys' philosophy on self-performing as much work as you do? I love it. I don't hear this as criticism. It's just more just hearing the thought process.
Yeah, I've worked in both worlds, and my brother-in-law is a big general contractor who subs, most of his work. So I see the pros and cons. Subcontracting thing works well when you're in big new construction projects. I think it'd be very difficult to manage a team that was doing, some large commercial or multifamily development. I mean, I think it works fine for single family homes. And I think the reason in our market, I think so many issues with construction defect repairs, we really need to hone in on the quality of what gets produced. And a problem with managing a ton of different subcontractors on a job, it can get very difficult. It can get very tenuous, and you don't have. I mean, why you still should have control of your subs, somehow it doesn't always happen. So, and you can't, a project manager or foreman can't be everywhere supervising the subs. You have to obviously rely on that sub base. So you're only as good as your subcontractors. So it can be a tough market, and since we do so much construction air work, most of the companies that do that really self-perform most of the work.
Yeah. Well, I imagine your guys have to be a little bit more skilled across multiple trades, right? Because you're going into a job and you do a little bit of everything. Or is that the case, or do you have crews that do certain things and you just hop them around from job to job as the timeline progresses through a project?
Some of both. I mean, we do have crews that do specific, like I have, stucco crews. They paint crews that just do paint, sheet metal guys that just do sheet metal. But the carpenters and the skilled trade people, they do multiple things. They'll do concrete work and framing repairs and waterproofing. I think it's one of those things that trying to being able to train your crews, is a big part of what we do. It's not just for the work we do, but they're also working in occupied housing. So the level of expectation of people, particularly like right now with as many people that are home, is a whole different thing than going out to, site and building ground up. So, I mean, there are no radios and there's no swearing and there's no smoke. Like,
extra clean, all those things.
Yeah. You really clean up at the end of the day, and you've got to cook everything off, and you got to look for kids and all the other things that we have to deal with just working in occupied housing, and trying to do that with actors can be really difficult. So they just sometimes don't get it.
So, I mean, the training and retention just blows my mind, right? Around 300 employees. I mean, that's a massive undertaking. What kind of systems do you guys have in place to acquire talent, right? Because I have to imagine as quickly as you can acquire them, you're probably losing them from a turnover standpoint, just because, and maybe that's not the case, and hopefully it's not, right? Knock on wood. But I mean, with 300, the numbers are the numbers, right? I know guys that want to have a crew of 8 or 10 and they can't find 1 or 2. And that's a 25% turnover, whereas a 25% turnover for you is, 40 guys, 50 guys. Like
we don't have huge turnovers like that. Our turnover rate's pretty small. I mean, we do have people coming in and out. I mean, we're like any construction company. Our biggest recruiting tool is basically through the existing employees. So we offer incentive to existing employees to bring in people with, and they usually bring in people that they like to work with, so we have pretty good success with that. Trying to advertise and bring people in from the street, has very low success rate. So, and then we, once they get here, we try to keep them, we keep our benefits up, and things we offer the employees. So hopefully,
What is the
loyalty is
training
one of those
process?
things- Yeah, loyalty is one of those things that over the years has kind of gone by the wayside between employer and employee.
Yeah. Yeah. What are some of the systems you guys have in place from a training standpoint? Because I have to imagine that's got to be pretty top of mind for you guys too, and making sure you stay on top of that with everybody that you guys manage.
Well, so there's a pretty rigid safety training program everybody goes through, literally from the day they walk in the door, and it continues the entire time they're here. And there's an entire safety department that deals with that. As far as the trade aspects of things, specific things that are going on out in the construction world, those are usually more site or job specific. And so they go through mock-ups and training anytime we start a new job, and go through the process, because we deal with different architects and designers. So things change from project to project. And so, we try to do is park a crew, the different details related to that job, and then they stay on that project to the end.
That's awesome. Yeah, I mean, it's one of those things where you kind of have to have the systems in place, right? If and I don't know where they were in the from a size standpoint when you started, but you kind of gotta have the systems in place to grow and be able to manage that number of people before you actually get that number of people, right? Like you can't get there and then think, how am I going to manage all these people? So I'd have to imagine the systems you guys have in place are it sounds like you guys
get
got
better over
the back
time.
office. Yeah.
They get better, figure out better ways of managing the people and training them. And that's something that I think any business nowadays that's dealing with kind of a blue collar labor force is, whether they're cleaning rooms in a hotel or out on a construction site, everybody needs to be trained, and we're all spending a lot more time training programs and stuff like that. It's not the old days where you put out the sign saying, I need 10 journeyman carpenters, and they line up at the door and they don't
right. Yeah. So you guys have, obviously there's an aspect of kind of, I don't want to say accountability when somebody's bringing in a friend or bringing in somebody that they know to work for you guys, right? It's almost like a second level of accountability, right? You've got the management level inside the office, and then you've got, this person that brought them in that they're now accountable to as well. But are you guys, has that been successful from a workforce or from a workability standpoint too? Are you able to find people that they're skilled and qualified for these jobs as well? Because that seems to be kind of an issue in the industry right now as well. It's just, I can bring in a friend, but can you do the job, right? Is that
yeah, I'm not going to say it's been 100% successful bringing in folks,
100%, yeah.
But I got to tell you, the success rate is way higher than it is when we're just, interviewing people off the street, so to speak. So,
yeah.
And I feel generally these people work side, so they know what the skill set is of the other person. And we have a fairly small industry, and people go from company to company. And I've certainly had people leave and come back, and leave again and come back. So,
right.
The Bay Area is a tough place. San Francisco Bay Area is a tough place to live. It's expensive, so they will hop around for an extra couple of dollars. So if you get a contract desperate for a crew and starts overpaying, we'll probably lose a few people. But you always tell them, look, at grass isn't always greener. If you come back, we actually during the pandemic started losing people to the union, which is I've never had happen in all the decades I've been in this business. But then they kind of, people suddenly were traveling, 3 hours to a job site and stuff like that. So a lot of them came back. So the pay was significant. So
that's awesome. Where do you see? Because I've talked to plenty of contractors where that younger generation is coming in, and a lot of times, or more often than not, it's that younger generation that wants to push the envelope a little bit and grow and kind of all these new ideas and new aspirations for the company. Do you see that kind of being the case with the transition that's taking place now?
Well, there's definitely interest in growing the company, and I think they should. I think everybody gets to a certain comfort level with wherever they're at. And there's new marketplaces. Our industry is not shrinking by any stretch of the imagination. So
Right. Yeah.
there's new areas to work in. I mean, if somebody, 10 years ago said I had a job in Fresno, I'd say pass. But now it's like, well, one of my that far from Fresno, so maybe we take a job in Fresno now. So,
Right.
so there's different areas of construction. I think as you grow and develop, the processes and stuff like that, it's only natural to grow. So
Yeah. Are you guys just based out of one location right now, or do you have a couple different offices, or were you?
no, we have 3 locations right now.
Okay.
One in the South Bay, one in the East Bay of the Bay Area, one in Sacramento. So.
Wow. Yeah, and maybe
And-
growing easiest way to grow, right? Especially when you've got that many people.
Yeah, I mean, one of the things that we had to start looking at in our industry is small projects, and the small projects take more effort and a lot more geographic office locations because you can't be so far away from the job site. So I don't know in the future whether, we're trying to shrink that business a little bit, and we have, and just focus on the larger because it gives us a better ability to grow and expand into different areas.
Well, you almost put it. It's. I have the same kind of thing, right? It's a contractor that comes in with just a few employees. It's almost the same work as a contractor like you that comes in with 300 employees, right? On the front end, there's a lot of work that's done to put it all together. And at the end of the day, obviously, one pays more than the other, right? I have to imagine it's kind of the same kind of situation for you guys, right? That setup process and putting the whole project together is almost the same, on the front end, but the one, provides job security and income over a longer period of time.
For exactly right. We'd end up with, thousands of little maintenance jobs, maybe equate to $1 million, and it takes an entire administrator's time and 2 different project managers' time, and I could do $1 million job and it'd be a tenth of the administrator's time and one project manager. So.
Right. So is there? Are there? Yeah, no, go ahead.
Talent got to be a lot harder, particularly like project managers and stuff. That was also kind of driving that equation of, do we really, produce? We do big work. We do a great job at it. We do small work. I think we do a good job at that too. It opens yourself up. Every time you go out to do something, it just opens up to more exposure with clients, which is a good thing. But then also, it can also not go good. So.
Right. No, for sure. So where do you see the future? Obviously we've talked about it a little bit, but are there goals you guys have set up with the new generation that's coming in, the brothers, and where do you kind of see the company go 2, 3, 5 years?
Well, I think there's going to be, we definitely put an annual operating plan and then kind of also do a future plan. COVID's made that a little difficult.
Yeah.
Figure out whether
it's like throwing darts now, right?
In business next year, or
right.
still going to be working. And then the supply chain issues that in 2022 is a little concerning too. I don't know how that's ultimately going to impact our ability to do work. It's already gotten to be very difficult getting some materials. So
yeah, what's funny? Garage doors. I know 3 people right now that have new homes that are being built, and they can't get garage doors, so they can't move in. That's the last thing that they're waiting on. It's
really they do all different kinds of things. ABS drain pipe's supposed to be the next big toilet paper shortage. So I don't know. It's been a very difficult thing. We were supposed to start a small recycle. And I'm just getting 5 units of hardy siding was like a 3-day project. So I don't know. We'll see how it goes. Yes, after we get out of the pandemic issues, supply chain issues, things like that, and the company is certainly in a position to continue And that's certainly our goal and objectives to do that. So whether it's expansion in our existing markets or also going into new geographic territories. So.
Very cool. Well, I look forward to watching that and kind of seeing where you guys are going. One thing I like to kind of touch on with most of my guests and just kind of find out where their head is at on it is social media, just because I mean, it sounds like you guys have kind of taken the charge with, or I guess, kind of led with, the Zoom stuff and some of those other things that are becoming a little bit more everyday practice in this industry. But the whole social media aspect of it too is fascinating to me, and kind of seeing where contractors and construction companies kind of fall on that scale. And just kind of curious where you guys are at on that, and what your thoughts are on it. I mean, obviously you guys are appealing to a different crowd, right? You're not appealing to the stay-at-home mom who's on Instagram looking for, somebody to whenever, redo their bathroom. But, at the same time, the project managers and the or not the project managers, sorry, the property managers and the HOA board members and all those people that you guys are appealing to are becoming younger and younger and kind of on those platforms as well. Is that something you guys have thought about, or where are you guys at on that?
Yeah, a lot of time redoing our website, particularly being Silicon Valley based. I mean,
Right.
It's amazing. And looking at the data that we're getting from not only the website inquiries as well as the podcasts and stuff like that, which is data that we really didn't have access to in the past, or easily in the past. So looking at our overall market share in those different arenas, seeing how often people are either searching for us or finding us, what pages they go to on our website. It's been really interesting to see how successful some of the marketing is on the different types of platforms. And property managers love social media. Facebook, Instagram, all that. They're LinkedIn, they're on all of it. So, and certainly the younger ones versus some of the older ones. But it's a big part of our marketing effort for sure.
Well, I love that you guys are tracking it and doing it deliberately, because that's if, in my opinion, if you're going to do it right, and make sure that you understand where those dollars are being spent and what's being successful and what's not. Do you guys have that are dedicated to that, I guess, endeavor, or that portion of your business inside?
Yeah, we have some people that run all the analytics on all our different media platforms in our web page. So so we have somebody looking at all the analytics and are kind of able to interpret them for us, because it's not something that I've ever looked at. I don't know what's considered good, what's considered bad, and it's really nice to have some people that do that for a living. And understand the to know whether we're successful or not, and what it takes to continue to grow our following. So
well, and it helps you kind of understand the numbers a little bit too, right? Because there's a lot of people that think, if I spend X amount of dollars on my website or X amount of dollars on Instagram marketing, that it should result in X times a certain number in business. But that's not always the case, right? It's not always a situation where money spent directly returns money for you. You're not getting phone calls from Instagram people too often, right, where people are calling and say, hey, please do my job because I just saw you on Instagram. But it's more of awareness and a branding kind of aspect of it, right? And those are numbers you can't really understand how those are doing anything for you until you understand what those numbers look like.
So, and it's kind of fun because, for somebody like myself, even though I'm not a millennial, it's nice to kind of be, in the mix of this stuff and see it go forward, because I find it very interesting. I think there's kind of a cultural anthropology aspect to it that I find fascinating.
It's an art almost too. Yeah. Being able to do it successfully. Yeah. Very cool, man. Well, Bill, this has been awesome. I appreciate you taking the time. Excited to see where you guys are headed. Sounds like you're obviously, well on your way, and maybe see you guys down our way a little bit. I'm down in Orange County, LA area, so maybe
That's our
see
next
some
expansion group is down to SoCal. So
I figured, yeah, because you kind of got to work in the metropolitan areas, right? I mean, where the big multifamily stuff is and the HOA stuff. Yeah. So hopefully we'll see you down this way, and if we don't hear from you before then, let's keep in touch, because I think what you guys are doing is awesome. So I appreciate your time.
Thanks, Mike. Appreciate it.
Yeah, no worries. Before we let you go, let's give you an opportunity to let everybody know where to find you guys, whether that's, whatever social medias or websites, or how to get a hold of you guys.
So our website is gbgroupinc.com, or you can reach me at bill.mann@gbgroupinc.com. And if you go to our website, we also have links to our podcast, HOA It's a True Story.
HOA It's a True Story. Yeah, we're going to link that one for you for sure, too, and get you a little shout out there, too, hopefully from one podcaster to another. And hopefully see that. It sounds like you guys are killing it there, too, so I appreciate it. Awesome. Thanks, Bill. It's been great. We look forward to staying in touch, and stay safe out there.
You too. Take care.
Thanks, Bill. Have a good one.
Hey, thanks for listening. If you had a good time, be sure to hit that subscribe button to get all the latest episodes. And if you had a really good time, leave a review to let us know what you thought. Until then, go gather some crazy stories on your job sites, and we'll see you next time on So, You Want to Be a Contractor.